Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and to our Community Development in Action Roundtable. I'm really looking forward to our conversation we're going to have today. We are a smaller group, so we'll be able to really have some really great chats. But for us to start this conversation and gathering in a good way, part of that is taking a moment to center our relationship with the land that we gather on and the history of that land, and to honor the families who've been here thousands of years. CDLI does our community work on the traditional territories of the people of Treaty 7 region, which is home of the Blackfoot Confederacy, including the Siksika, the Kainai, and the Piikani nations, as well as home to Tsuut'ina Nation, the Rush Nakota nations, and home to Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. We are all treaty people. Treaty 7 was and is a promise between nations to share the land, to support one another, to establish peaceful relations, and it is up to each and every one of us to work to make this place and the world better for all future generations.
Tonight, we are very excited and grateful to be hosting this roundtable. We've got some incredible people who are making a difference in their communities in different ways. But before we get to that, we'll maybe introduce ourselves in CDLI for those of you who aren't as familiar with us. My name is Amanda Palmer, and my pronouns are she, her, and I've had the privilege of being a co-lead at the Community Development Learning Initiative for over 4 years now. And CDLI is a Calgary-based network for community-minded people who are seeking to deepen their connections and capacities to create positive change in their communities. And our work is made possible thanks to our core funders, the Calgary Foundation, the City of Calgary, Calgary Neighborhoods, and the United Way of Calgary and Area.
Hi, everyone. I will introduce myself. My name is Tyson Bankert. I lived here in Mohkinstsis originally my entire life, and I'm honored and able to witness so many different communities grow and change over the years that I've been here. For me, I can be summarized by my personal slogan, which is to edify others, befriend the lonely, and promote justice. And my pronouns are he, him.
And we like to describe our work as holding space for imagining new futures together, where all people in Calgary welcome each other and work together to take collective action for the common good. And at CDLI, we aim to do this by convening people who are passionate about community regularly through events like this, building capacity, connecting people, ideas, opportunities together. And we also have our asset-based community development learning and action team and anti-racism and decolonization learning and action team, which help hold conversation and learning and practice in those particular fields of community development as well. Before we welcome our roundtable guests and get the conversation going, I would like to invite the lovely Maddie Woodhead to speak. For the past few months, Maddie and her colleague Jenna Forbes have been working behind the scenes to help address an identified gap around knowledge of available community grants. This came out of some community conversations in the Greater Forest Lawn area. So Maddie will share now about the map that they have created together, which is now available on our website to help start to address this. And you'll also find some other resources there, including a calendar, grant closing dates, and additional resources. So Tyson's thrown a link to that in the chat. I am going to share my screen for Maddie while she takes a couple minutes to speak to the great work that they've been doing.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Maddie. I'm a third-year public relations student at Mount Royal University. I just wanted to start by thanking Amanda for inviting me to talk a little bit about the project that me and Jenna have worked on over the course of the semester, as well as just thank CDLI for the opportunity to create something meaningful for their organization and Calgary communities. So we completed the systems map detailing available community grants in Calgary as part of our community service learning for our public relations management class. Taking a look at the map, we basically looked at existing available grants in Calgary and kind of organized them by their funding focus. So such as parks, sports, or community events. So then we took it and organized it in a visual way, as you can see. So when you click on any of the grant bubbles, it kind of pops up with relevant information. So a simple description, dates and timelines, and links to apply. So our hope with the grants map is that it can be used by community members such as yourselves, just to increase community building efforts in Calgary.
Thanks so much, Maddie. And my sharing of the screen of this is not doing it justice. You can go in and play around with it yourself. And it's also something that, Maddie, correct me if I'm wrong, people can go into the website and add their own things, make their own changes. So it's also something that can be community sourced. So as things change over time, it's something that can get built on. And yeah, anything else you want to say about this before?
I don't think so. I think that's it. Yeah, I hope that it's a good tool for everyone.
Thanks so much. And so, like we said, the page is now live as of a couple hours ago, and very much we're hoping this to be a starting point and something that becomes really meaningful moving forward. And there's also some additional links and pages on here to direct people to the many great resources that exist. Part of what came out of the conversations that were happening in Greater Forest Lawn is that there are a lot of grant opportunities and there are a lot of resources on like how to apply for the grants and what's to be considered. I actually attended the Calgary Foundation spring webinar, for instance, a couple weeks ago now, that gives a really great overview of what that might look like and the available resources. One of the things people in the more grassroots space are finding is that they just don't know where to look. So we're hoping that we can have a place that just directs people to all of the places, and that way it's a little bit easier for people to find. And again, like so grateful that Maddie and Jenna were able to come on board and do the work that they've done as part of this project. It's all came together so quickly and they were brilliant and have done a lot of work on the back end to learn it. So huge kudos to them, super grateful, and really looking forward to what emerges from this as we move forward. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And I think we can pass it on to Tyson, who's going to introduce our wonderful roundtable guests. I don't know if I see Vincent yet, so we'll hopefully welcome Vincent in shortly, but Tyson can introduce everyone else. Get us started.
Yeah, great. Great job, Maddie. I think they left. That's okay. I really think that's a great piece that would be really useful for us and for the wider community. So I'm really excited to introduce folks here to begin talking about their community initiatives. So I have Bethel here, who is the founder of the Alcove Center for the Arts. A little bit about Bethel. Bethel is an educator, poet, entrepreneur, and nature lover who is passionate about making cities more enjoyable. Passionate about making Calgary a more welcoming city for all, Bethel founded Raw Voices in 2016, and currently Bethel is the executive director and co-founder of the Alcove Center for the Arts. The Alcove is a nonprofit recreational art space with the mission to make arts more accessible by creating welcoming spaces where everyone can foster their creativity. A little bit note about Bethel is that I've been meaning to engage with Bethel for probably a few months now, and so it's really cool to be a bit more exposed to your work and the work that you do for the community. Next is Kim Fisher with Community Cruisers. Kim is a volunteer with the Community Cruisers. Their mission is to promote bicycle use for transportation as a means to improve health, sustainability, and equity in the Bow Valley. Blending her professional experience, formerly as an active transportation education planner with the City of Calgary, with her lived experience of traveling year-round by bike and as a parent of a small bike enthusiast. Kim firmly believes in safe and connected cycling infrastructure that welcomes folks of all ages and abilities. You can find Kim riding her long trail cargo bike around Banff, bike packing with her family, or testing her new mountain bike skills on the Tunnel Mountain trails. Thanks so much for coming, Kim. And then we also have Peter Shienda. Peter has been helping out with the SOS Congo community for as long as he can remember. SOS Congo, and for Peter, community is something big and something that people can come out to share ideas and not be ashamed of what people think about their ideas, and rather have a positive mindset and a goal that can achieve not only by themselves, but others that are also part of that community. Peter believes that youth mentorship in community not only guides generations, but also helps us along the way, because having a mentor or someone that has already been through this journey, that we can face really gives us another way of seeing life and challenges. So thanks so much, Peter, for joining us in this conversation.
No problem.
Glad you could make it. All right. So we're going to have our roundtable portion. And then afterwards, we have time, we'll have a Q&A from the audience and learn a little bit more about your community work. So I would love for each of you to introduce yourselves. I know I introduced you, but I would love to hear a little bit more about what that means for you, and then what community means to you. So introduce yourself and what community means to you. Anyone can go first.
I can start.
Bethel?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Tyson, for inviting me about introduction. My name is Bethel, and what community means to me is essentially a space that feels like you can see yourself in that space. And so that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of people, but going into a space and feeling like, like you have not necessarily like a stake or a say in it, but you feel like you see yourself in it, whether it's the people that are there that make you feel like you're seen or heard. Just making space for people to feel like they belong, essentially.
Awesome. Thanks, Bethel.
I can go next.
Go ahead, Kim.
So I'm a board member and volunteer with the Community Cruisers, like you shared, Tyson. We're based in the Bow Valley, and our mission is to promote bicycle use for transportation as a means to improve health and sustainability and equity in the Bow Valley. And so to me, community aligns with some of the, in this circumstance especially, aligns with the values of our organization, inclusivity, creativity, sustainability, and respect for everyone that's sharing a space where we live and travel.
And Peter.
So I believe that community is described as a group or people that could share like common values, interest, or goal, and that can come together to support each other, and they can like make something big of their group and just not like be ashamed to share ideas, as I put in my bio. And yeah, that's really all I have to share.
Thanks, Peter. We'll go into the next question here, which is there are a couple questions to this. So share with us how you connect with community. What is your why for being involved? What makes you want to be a part of that community? And if you can say a little bit more about what does your involvement look like? What does it take for you to do what you do? So what are those passions that really are the foundation for your community building efforts?
Peter, I saw you unmuted. You want to go?
Oh, I thought he was talking to me. You could go ahead.
I was talking to all three of you, and so whoever wants to go first and take that on, by all means. But
Bethel could go first. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Thanks,
Yeah, no worries. So sorry, can we backtrack just to clarify the question again? Yeah.
One is share with us how you connect with community. What's your why for being involved?
Mhm.
And then I think the second question to that is just what does being involved look like for you? So what does it take for you to really do the work that you are passionate about?
Okay, cool. So I guess like in terms of like the organization's why, we can start with that. Is
Sure.
just we believe that creativity is integral to the human experience, right? And so we believe that arts and creativity is important to the human experience. It's not about being an artist, whether, we think about it or not, art is very much like commodified or created as a luxury, especially where we live, in a very like westernized kind of thought. But it's in our day-to-day lives, whether it's like, your nature is honestly like creativity. If we watch films, movies, even like the most boring things we think about, like we might look at like a desk, like someone had to design that, someone had to draw that, like that takes creativity. And so, and that's an artistic practice and skill. And so that's why we do what we do as part of the organization. Why I decided to start it is like, because essentially growing up and even now, you know, you realize, first of all, there's not really like a casual space to like hang out that is like an art bar, an art salon, that type of thing. And so, and especially if you wanted to, so like there's a lack of like social spaces, period, right? Like when we think of free hangout social spaces, it's probably the library, which is like obviously created by, you know, government and things like that. It's not really like the grassroots way of doing things, but I love the library. I love going to the library. But what if there's like a similar sense where you can kind of just like show up and the whole purpose is to get creative, to be encouraged to be creative with the supplies there that exist, or even you bringing your own projects, because creative making and art making, if you are an artist, can honestly be very solitary, sometimes lonely, if that's the type of like art practice that you do. And so kind of just like creating that community where people can just like show up. It's very like spontaneous. It's like, oh, there might be people there might be not, like there'll be always someone to like strike up a conversation, right? Kind of that idea where you just like show up and get to meet people. It's just like a hangout space. You know, we really lack that in this society, we felt. And then also we felt like arts wasn't really like accessible. Like if you wanted to go learn how to play the guitar, you know, you usually have to go do private lessons and things like that. And so really just this like casual lens of just being able to access arts and creativity, whether it's in a more structured way or something like just showing up and just meeting other people that want to get creative. We just wanted that like casual alternative social space environment, especially for people that are entering their like young adulthood and like teen years as well. So yeah.
Can I ask a question as to like what made you personally want to be the co-founder for this organization? Like what was that inspiration?
Personally, I mean, it was honestly like not technically like an idea that sparked out from like myself. It was like I had a friend and we were hanging out and we were super bored. It was a summer day. You know, we went to get food. We're full. We don't want to drink. And we're like, what is there to do? Like, we're like, we can just like bike ride. Like she was also like not really into like, she's not really like a sports person. Like I was like, maybe we can like go do something. And she was like, no, you know what I actually want to do? I want to show up somewhere where there's some paint supplies and we could just chill for a couple hours and just paint. That's what she said. And I was like, I don't know why that was so like revolutionary to me. Like that was like literally like in 2016. And so when I heard that, I asked her to like elaborate more, and she started talking about this like idea and dream that she's always had as a kid growing up. And she kept calling it a creative space. She's like, what if there was just like this creative space where you just like showed up? You're not an artist, because like she's not an artist. She'll never get on a stage. She would never showcase her work, but she just loves making art with friends, just as like a way to just like talk to each other and things like that. But of course, it's not very social when you're doing it alone. When you're doing it with people, now you have to find a venue to do it. And so in the summer, we do it in the park sometimes, like we bring paint supplies and hang out, but it's like, what happens in the wintertime? And she's like, I just don't understand why there isn't just a space that exists like this. And so out of conversations from that, we decided to really be like, okay, what actually exists in the art scene now? So then we actively started going to shows and trying to see what existed in Calgary's art scene, which birthed Raw Voices, because we made a pact that we would do our own thing and like see what the gap is and then try to fill it. Like we didn't want to just do another show. We wanted to see what was missing. And what we felt like was missing was like an eclectic cabaret that mixed the spoken word and the music and the comedy. Because there's a lot of cool music shows, a lot of cool spoken word things happen. There's a lot of comedy here. And we're like, you know what, for someone that wants like a little bit of everything, may not be able to go out to all these different things, let's give them a taste of a little bit of everything for $5 once a month, you know? And so that's pretty much where the idea started, and what a one-time thing had to be. It was very much like community led. Like I would have only hosted Raw Voices once. if it wasn't for people being like, so is this going to happen next month? And then you
Yeah,
realize
right.
a need, right? And then that same friend lied to them and said, it's happening every month, actually. And she came up to me and she's like, it's a monthly show now. And so for me, yeah, like we could have these ideas, but it's like really the community of people that are like, hey, like, thank you for doing this. And that's what moves us forward. And so really like being the co-founder, it was more of a like, I knew, like, I believed in this. And so I'm like, why not? Like, why not try this? Like, why not try to start something? And if it doesn't do well, it doesn't do well. And if it does well, it does well. You know, like at the end of the day, like you got to try. So.
That's awesome. My first interaction with you was about a couple months ago now. And like, we were just hosting like a session on like doing a haiku. And I was like, I haven't done that in so long. And also like just the idea of coming and learning and being exposed to kind of what you're talking about, like different forms of art, and having yourself like share that to the small little cohort that I was a part of. It was just really cool and really awesome to experience. And having popped in a couple of times over this past month too, being like, oh yeah, like I see like the potential and the magic that can kind of happen in spaces like that. So I'm going to ask the next person to answer that question of share with us how you connect with your community and what's your why, right, for being involved in the work that you do. And yeah, what does that being involved look like?
I was going to see if Peter was going to go, but I'll take a stab.
Thanks, Kim.
Yeah, so I moved back to Banff after a number of years of being away in Calgary. I worked for the municipal government for about 10 years, and during COVID, I was itching for a change, and so I came back out this way to the mountains. I worked in the transportation realm for 5 years, working on projects to make it safer and easier for people to walk and bike in Calgary. And I wanted to take some of the learning that I had from my work life and be able to apply that into my volunteer role. And so I was able to connect with some folks that were working on some really cool programs under the community cruisers. And so some of the things that drew me to the organization were that they had a winter cycling program that welcomed new people to give winter cycling a try. And we have a sliding scale, so people can either pay what they can or participate in the program. We're a charitable organization, so we get a lot of grant funding. So that map that is really helpful, actually. But we invite people to give winter cycling a try. They get studded tires and fenders and bike lights, and they get paired with a mentor who helps them get outside, and they commit to riding their bike a couple times a week and sharing their story back with our organization. And so last year we had 89 people, well, ending in March at the end of the month here, we'll have 89 people that from various backgrounds that participate. So it's students like little kids all the way up to people in their 80s and 90s that want to ride bikes year round, which is really neat. And then some of the other programs that I found really interesting that drew me towards the cruisers, there's 2 community bike shops. And so it's a spot where people can come work on bikes a couple days a week in Canmore and 1 day a week in Banff. And there's always one or two bike mechanics who can show you how to fix your own bike. So you can bring your bike in and then fiddle around with it, and in a really welcoming and consistent environment, I think, with all the tools that you need. A lot of people coming to town here may not have space to have a bike stand or bike tools, or there may be barriers to purchasing all those items. So it's a shared resource that we have that people can drop by and repair their bikes. And then we also take donations of old bikes, repair them, and then get them out to the community for really low cost. So between like $50 and $80 to purchase a bike. And we're definitely flexible with the way that happens too. So if someone doesn't have funds, where we explore options to get them the bike for low or no cost. And then just the ability to reduce social isolation through being outside and being with other people. We have a program called Pedal for Joy, and it's this 4-seater bike where there's one person who
Mm.
kind of steers and drives it. And we go around to different seniors' homes and take seniors out, or people that have long-term disabilities that are maybe in hospices. We take them out for rides so they can go outside, they can ride, or they don't have to. When we're working with neurodivergent youth as well, so they can get out and be in a really safe place and get outside with their family or their friends, and ride bikes. So it's fun. It's really welcoming, and those are the pieces that drew me towards volunteering with the organization. And I'm really happy to still be with them today.
So thanks so much, Kim. That sounds like a really incredible way to provide all the things that you mentioned around sustainability and health to the community through biking. And just that follow-up question to this is just, I'm curious to know, like, what makes you want, like, you are a bike enthusiast, like what makes you want to stay involved in this work?
For me, it's trying to have more affordable options for people to get around the places that we live, and also advocating and kind of organizing some advocacy, which is something else we do, to encourage town council to support safer, better connected, better maintained bike infrastructure so people can get around. There's a piece to it to me that is related to kind of environmental responsibility. So our reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, empowering other people to try new things and share the skills that we have back and forth as a community. And then lastly, I think just investment in the future. So I have a little kid and I want them to be able to get around safely as well by bikes. So something that is near and dear to my heart.
Thanks, Kim. So Peter, you mentioned that you've been with SOS Congo for as long as you can remember. So I'm wondering for you, what's the thing that keeps you connected to your community? What's your why?
So I'd say something that keep us connected are just like sending messages. Like we have a group chat with our group, like with some people that were also a part of the program. So we send messages sometimes. Lately, not as much, but lately we've also been hosting a basketball program. So a bunch of people from SOS Congo can come out and play and enjoy, like having fun, have fun time together and play, like just pick up games, just have fun. It's like usually every Fridays. And so that's one way that we usually keep in touch and stay connected. Sometimes there's like meetings, like events here and there sometimes. And a lot of people usually get involved with it. Like there's maybe also there's some Vincent also in the meeting as well. He's also part of it. And yeah, that's just some ways we stay connected.
I could just add to that. So yeah, we started a basketball program. I think it's been about 6 months or so, and it's just been an opportunity to like bring the community together. Like I've just learned so many new names and seen so many new faces. It's building its own community basically, right? And initially when we started, it was like just a few kids, just like some people I knew that wanted a place to play basketball just on a Friday night. Instead of going out or anything like that, just being able to like get some activity in and just enjoy the time with other people. So when we set it up, it was like I would say like six to 10 people, and then like slowly grew to like a big group, and like we were able to expand and kind of like, so we got a new spot where it was like 2 basketball courts instead of 1, so we can have continuous games for everybody. And like it grew to like 50 kids now, which is super cool. So we have like basically like a community. And like also another thing we also do provide for them is like an opportunity for them to know about things going on in the community. Like a lot of youth are very disconnected and don't know of opportunities that are coming along. And like, let's say, for example, there was like some RBC Future Olympian program that just came up recently. And that was an opportunity for everybody to like know about what's going on. Like we told them like, well, here's an opportunity for you to like if you excel in a certain skill, you can go to this combine, and they could pick from like kids to go to like a certain, get professional training in order to actually become something they would want to be, right? So it was like things like they would never know about and like they would often not see. And so it's like we just made like a hub for them to be able to come to, and being able to understand every youth individually and actually learn their story is like the biggest part of it all. So you just see people from different walks of life and really understand like their story too, right? So it just yeah, it's been slowly just building up, and we're just hopefully eventually able to get the right funding to be like get our own spot where we don't have to worry about booking and switching different places every time. Because yeah, sometimes like there's tournaments or something, and we won't be able to play at those specific places, so we just always switching it up. So hopefully we'll be able to like figure out a way to like eventually get the right funding and get the right support to have our own spot. So that's the end goal.
And thanks so much, Vincent, for popping in there. I wanted for folks, Vincent's also on our roundtable, and so I do want to also introduce them as well. Vincent, you've had the opportunity to play basketball growing up, and that has always been a part of who you are. And Vincent has also said that he's been able to create a program, which he's talked a little bit about, to embody youth and allow them to have a space to put differences aside and enjoy basketball. So to both Peter and Vincent, I'm wanting to ask, what does it take for you to do what you do? Like what are some things that are really drive you to be involved in SOS Congo? I know for Peter, it's a volunteer. For Vincent, it's the basketball group. But I'm wondering, what are some of those principles that drive you both?
Okay, I could go first. So I'd say the main thing is just being able to connect with different people on a different level, just not being like surface level and just understanding them, but seeing them every week. It just builds like that connection, right? And so many new faces, and like letting them know that they have somebody to support them, right? It's like the most important thing. So just having that chance is like, I think that's the most important thing for me. And I would say like individual growth as well. I've gained so many skills just being able to help run this program. It's like things that are going to help me down the road in my life, and like could eventually like could translate to my workplace down the road. So it's like just those small skills that you don't even realize you're picking up, but it's just like it just comes all together eventually.
Thanks, Vincent. And what about you, Peter? What keeps you keeps you being involved?
So I'd say like as a youth, like maybe some people are like older than me, but as a youth, I'm learning like leadership and also how to connect with people, maybe having conversations, small talk here and there. But I feel like it'll help me out like along the way, as like maybe I may have like meetings and I may not know what to say. It's helping me learn like how to take initiative and know what to say at the right moment and have just things that I can relate to, like, so then when the moment comes, then I have that opportunity and like the mindset to execute it.
Awesome. That's great. I love to hear from both of you about, and this is a really, the SOS in Congo is, for those who don't know, it's sharing our stories. And so I really appreciate you both being able to like share a little bit about what that has meant for you. I'm going to into the last question, which is for all of our roundtable members, is what has been some key learnings for you, and what advice would you give to others who might want to connect with their communities?
Hey, sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you just say that one more time?
Yeah, no problem. What have been some key learnings for you, and what advice would you give to others who might want to connect with their communities?
Right. So I'd say my key advice for me would be, I think just getting it started, because that's the hardest thing. Just being able to start. Once you get started, everything will fall together, and it'll be like, it's almost like a domino effect. It's just like things will eventually come, and you'll just learn from your experiences, and that's the only way you could grow. So just being able to make mistakes is the only way you could actually, expand your arsenal basically, and just have all these different skills. So, and I would say like for somebody starting out with like a program or something, I think the most important thing is being open-minded, right? Being able to like basically just step outside of your own box and being able to try different things, because that's the only way you'd be able to actually like pick up on those skills that you would actually need to like grow as a person and even help with your like program or anything like that. So yeah, I'd say like those two things.
And Vincent, I'm wondering, is there a particular story maybe that can help, that you have experienced that kind of has helped you learn, like, oh yeah, that like making mistakes was really good, or being open-minded was really important? Was there a particular story in your experience of developing the basketball?
Yeah, so I could start with this one. So like when I was going into high school, I'd never played any club basketball or anything of that sort.
Okay.
I always played with my friends, and I always felt that I was pretty good though compared to my peers. So going on to the tryouts, I'm like, let me just give it a try and just see how it goes, right? Like let me just, put my skills out there. And then so I got cut, right? I got cut my first year in grade 10. And as like I was really sad. Like I was really like I felt torn down, I was like I felt way better than everybody else, and I felt like I did pretty good, right? But it's just like the coach didn't know who I was, and it's just like at that school it was more of a bigger thing to like the coach know you rather than just showing up and just like So yeah, when that happened, I had to like understand and really like basically like overcome that, and that caused me to just gain so many new skills, and I felt like I worked that double times harder just to be able to like just get better at what I do. So like I expanded everything. I tried new skills. I played more. I put more hours into it, and that allowed me to like grow and go into my next year with like that fire in me. I really wanted to do it this year. I'm like, I'm not gonna lose again. I'm not gonna get cut from this team. So yeah, with that, I was able to like really show my skills the upcoming year, and was able to make the team. And like from there, like I was a key player in the team. Like I I got a few awards from the school. Like I was since that, like I've always loved basketball since then. And it was like it's always been a story, and like it made me feel like the thing about basketball, it makes you feel like you have a family aside from your family. It's like somewhere where you could tell everyone your problems, or you could feel like they're almost like your brothers. So it's like I had that connection as well, and it made me learn so many things, and that all those things transferred to my daily routine and stuff too. So yeah, with that, so then
No.
from there, like I was able to just continue on my journey, and I think that's what helped me like start this program. I'm like, I know there's so many different youth that might want this like opportunity to expand their skills or learn just life skills in general, not just basketball. So with that, we were able to just start the program.
Awesome. Thanks. Anyone else want to answer that question about what have been some key learnings for you in your community action, and what advice do you give to others who might want to connect to their community?
I just wanted to echo what Vincent said about like just getting started. I think I just want to add to that by saying like doing something very small is better than just like doing nothing. Like I think that a lot of us, we get overwhelmed by the bigger vision. Like I know that when we first started Raw Voices, the idea was to one day open up this space, right? But like we couldn't even fathom what space was because like, we were obviously students, we had part-time jobs and things like that. What we did have capacity for is creating some type of consistent community and potentially like a dive bar. It wasn't like our favorite place to be, but we knew that was like currently the only space we could access. So using resources that we have to just do something. And I think a big thing is doing things that are small but consistent. I think that especially in this like Calgary realm of like events, if we're really talking about events, the city really enjoys doing really big things, a couple times a year, once a year. But what's that like weekly thing that's tiny that happens all the time? There's not a lot of those things compared to the investment of like that grandiose, so thousands, millions of Calgarians stuff like that, right? Is what not just Calgary, but just kind of like how even granting agencies are organized, sometimes government, things like that. They like to see like the thousands, the big, but thinking about like the 5 people that show up every week, the 10 people that might show up every week is actually creating a much larger impact than any one event that's going to bring thousands and thousands, maybe millions of people once a year or a certain time of year that's really concentrated. And so I think that it's when you are building community, I think that start small and, don't be afraid of like sharing your idea constantly and widely. I think that people sometimes are afraid of like, if I tell the wrong person, they're going to steal my idea. You know what? Like they don't have the resources and the vision that you have, right? Like and so I think that sharing it is almost like I find like a process of like manifestation and making it realer for yourself, right? It's not really about the people out there stealing it. And if it's a stealable idea, well, I'm sure you'll find other ideas, And so like, it's just one of those things where I think that when we keep things close to ourselves and afraid to share it, it will never leave us. Like it will never become a thing because we're too scared to even take the first step of just saying it out loud. And also just being okay if things don't go as planned. I know that when we first started Alcove, the idea was we're going to open up a recreational arts facility, right? Like we went right into looking for space. But then when we realized like that was probably not a realistic thing, we were like, do we even know what a recreational art space is? Like, yeah, we've hosted this show every month, but that's like one of the hundreds of things we want to do in this new thing. And so like doing pop-ups and starting small again and being like figuring out the kinks, like could we do this outside? Is this idea replicable inside? Like where could we build community that we didn't even think could exist, and doesn't necessarily need a consistent space? We just need to bring something consistent, period, and we can create a space. We can do it in any space, and we can create it in any space, whether it be outdoor, indoor, things like that, and kind of creating that resiliency. So yeah, starting small, being consistent, and being okay if things don't go as planned would definitely be my 3 things.
Thanks, Bethel, for sharing that. I love what you were saying about well, 2 things. I think it's that when we share with other people, I mean, stealing is definitely an option, but also that ability to partner, right? Like, oh, hey, you have an idea, we have the same idea.
Exactly.
How do we, collaborate and like build those connections? And I'm just really curious to know, and I really appreciate what you're saying about that capacity, right? Of like doing things often and consistently. But I'm wondering what that, in your experience, does for community. Because I think to your point, like these one-off things that happen 1 or twice a year, it's just an event. You kind of go to it, you might go with a few friends and then you leave. But I'm wondering for you, from your experience, what have you seen with doing something consistent on a consistent basis, what that does for community?
I think it builds it, period. I think that's like how, the basis of like how it builds community, because essentially when things are happening consistently, you start getting a rhythm and a routine, and you start finding maybe people that you enjoy hanging out with and things like that. But if it's only something that's like one-off, you might feel that sense of community in those couple hours in that moment, but it's gone until next year or till whenever, right? And I understand that like, even as an organizer, it's tough to be consistent. It's tough to do these things, and like being okay with yourself that like, maybe you have to miss a week or 2 or things like that, but as consistent as possible that you can make it, and as small as possible. Like think of your grandiose things, make it smaller, make it smaller, make it smaller until it's like digestible, and then work backwards and then start building it is my big thing. And yeah, like I feel like community is only built with consistency, right? Like we need spaces to go, to show up, and to feel like we have a community, right? Or else it is just an event, or else it is just a random occurrence or happening. It's not actually community if it's not actually like consistent, where you can show up and actually do things there.
Thanks, Bethel.
Thank you.
Passion. Kim, can I ask you to go in the next question around what have been some key learnings for you, and what advice would you give to others?
Yeah, I think I would echo Bethel's consistency a bit, and then we found that with our programs too, if people rely on us to be there at certain times from the bike mechanics side of things, and also we're at the farmers market every Wednesday in Canmore so people can park their bikes there, and it's just been people expect to see us there, and I think that has really helped us solidify our small bit in the community in the Bow Valley, and it helps us recruit volunteers. It helps us create that trust with community too, which is really important. The other piece I'd add is for us, the invitation is huge. People may not know that they can learn to fix a bike really quickly, and we invite people into the space that may have never worked on a bike before, but they leave with really good skills and they can apply those down the road. And that's been great, because sometimes people don't know that they're welcome in a space until you make that invitation. So that's been a big learning for us too, is invite people in.
Awesome. And Peter, wondering for you, what are some key learnings for you, and what advice would you give to others?
So I'd say some advice that I give for others is just go out, explore whatever communities are available and whatever opportunities you get, and see what there is out there, because you may never know. Like maybe you find a community that you really feel a part of and that you can really contribute to, like I did for SOS Congo, and probably some ed. Wait, what was the other one? I forgot.
First of all, I really appreciate what you're saying about like getting connected and finding a place where you can be connected and belong. And the other question there was, what advice what would you give to others?
Advice I'd give for others, as I said, just explore and find out some new skills that you have and just see what there is out there for you. Because just sitting at home, you're not really connected with anyone and you don't really do anything. Just go do whatever you have to do and then you just come home to nothing. So I'd say just go out, explore, find opportunities, and maybe you find maybe something that you enjoy to do daily.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter. Well, thank you so much for the great conversation and the really thoughtful and inspiring responses that each of you had. What we're going to then now transition to is from a Q&A from the audience. So if folks have any questions or insights or comments that they heard through the roundtable that they wanted to ask questions, whether it's maybe to all of them or to specific folks, please feel free to do that. You can unmute yourself, or you can post it in the chat. We would love to have some time for some really great conversation as well.
Kim. I've noticed an influx a bit on upcycling bikes and getting bikes to people who aren't getting bikes. Has there been a community joining in that way? Like Two Wheel View was kind of early adopter, Bike Swap, and I've noticed a couple other names. Now you mentioned that there's some going on out in the Bow Valley corridor as well. Is there some sharing going on there? I'm sure you guys know one another. Are you playing nice in the sandbox?
Absolutely. Yeah, we actually reached out to Two Wheel View not too long ago to learn a little bit more about what they were doing in their bike workshop. And that's been a great way for us to learn and create community, I guess, like from the Bow Valley all the way to Calgary. And we've reached out to a few other organizations as well, related to some climate funding and things like that. So I think there's always lessons to be shared and no need to reinvent the wheel. If there's other people that are doing it really well, we might as well learn from them. And our Bike All Winter program actually was adopted from another organization from Peterborough, Ontario. So we learned from them, we replicated their program, and now we're in the third year of our program. So it was all due to relationship building. People being willing to share.
Totally. Thanks, Keith, for that question. Yeah.
I guess that goes to the rest of the groups. Are you, in doing what you're doing, are you finding new networks with other groups that are doing similar types of things? And are you doing well to work together, execute forward together? Is that part of what it is that you're working to do?
Sorry, was this question directed at me? I was like, I didn't hear
the other presenters, anybody. Yeah, Bethel, go for it. Art stuff. I'm not directly involved with art community, but I can tell you, I know a number of different art people. Hence by wanting to put you on to Khalid, there's stuff that goes on. I just like to know that people are doing what they can to meet one another, share the resources, as Kim puts. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel in a lot of cases. Sometimes your idea set is, very, very succinct, but a lot of times to get to that, you can, stand on the shoulders of others to get to the greatness that you need.
And could you just repeat the actual question one more time? Sorry.
Are you playing nice in the sandbox with other art people?
Okay. Same question. Okay. I wasn't sure if it was a different one because I feel like I misheard it. Okay. Yeah. I feel like nothing is done without collaboration or partnerships. I mean, specifically for us. And so for us, it's like the more people that are aligned that we can bring together, the thing that's like how we're able to create what we want to create at the end of the day. Like we looked as hard as we could to find a space that check marks all the boxes that we're trying to check marks. Yes, there are lots of different people, I feel like, doing artistic things. Yes, you can go find workshops. Yes, there's lots of cool events. Yes, there's this, but to find a place that is sober, where food and drinks isn't the primary thing, where arts and creativity actually comes first, is actually a very, very small group that does that on a consistent basis, with the idea of it being consistent. And so for us, like, partnerships is a big thing when it comes to space, and chatting with other organizations of like, what is that gap we can help you fill? You're doing all these cool things, all these cool programming, but is there anything kind of like we can do? So like, maybe we'll activate the foyer sometimes for them. And maybe we'll do like programs that are a little bit more financially friendly and things like that. But I find there's a lot of things happening as like someone that is very actively trying to go look for new things. And thank you for mentioning Khalid actually in the chat. I actually do know about the Artist Lounge, but I don't know who started it or never really looked into it because I know it's by Capitol Hill. But yeah, I think that for us at the end of the day, if it aligns and if it's supporting this grander vision of just arts being accessible to people, and that comes in like such a variety of definitions, and I feel like we hit maybe 2 out of the hundreds of definitions of what accessibility really means. Yeah, like that's how it happens. I don't think anything is possible alone, to be honest, at all.
Bethel, I just want to make a comment about what you said about that's really happening for me right now, is your reference to making things accessible, and also realizing that community should be being able to participate in community should be for everyone. And so when I hear you say things like, yeah, we're able to like maybe check off a couple of ways that people can access us, that in itself is really important, because that allows for those folks to be able to go, oh yeah, I'm interested, I can finally get engaged. So that's really great. Ingrid has a question as well.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks everybody for sharing about your work. I really appreciate, especially Peter, and hearing from like young people getting engaged in the community. It's really inspiring. I love what you're saying about the sort of consistency and keeping things accessible and small and like a family. I think I heard Vincent or Peter say. It also made me think, I've sometimes gone to a community event where everybody else knows each other, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, how do I fit in here? So I'm curious for all of you, how do you keep things intimate, but still sort of open for new people to keep on joining and accessing, and still feel like, not that sort of sense of like, oh, I'm not sure if I fit here or not.
I mean, for me, I was this is like raw voices. I'm really good with faces. I'm extremely intentional, or I try to be if I see someone new, and kind of going up to them and just like sparking that combo. That's actually one thing we tell our volunteers, that chat with every single person that comes through the space. I mean, not in that like retail way, like, hey, do you need any help? But it's like, hey, is it your first time at Alcove? Like, do you know what we're about? And then at least that sparks the first convo. And then, you already get that, because it's tough. It is tough when you go into a room and it feels like, oh, everyone knows each other. It's kind of like cliquey. And then it's like, how do you break out of that? And it has to be very much intentional. Like, you have to be intentional of like, hey, I don't know if this is a new face or not, but I'm going to go say hi, and like making that part of like your training mandate on like, what is your role here, is to make sure all the new people feel like they're not new anymore, and so essentially it could be asking every person at the door. It's beyond just like, oh, do you have a ticket here? Do you know, yada, yada, yada. It's like, are you new here? How'd you hear about us? Like, these are questions that we like asking, and then that in itself starts a conversation. So yeah, it comes with intention, and it's hard at events. Like if there's a one-off event, it's like, you're going to have the person at the door is probably checking your ticket, and then you're in, and then it's like, figure it, the event is what they've curated, right? They didn't curate to create a way to chat with everyone, but that's like a big event, right? And I'm sure, like, I'd love to hear like Peter and Vincent's thing. I'm pretty sure if there's like a new people, you all know they're new. So there's probably something you do to say, hi, hello, like this is a new person, things like that. And so, yeah, it's just being intentional with it for sure.
Can I add on to that? Yeah. So like, I guess like the best way to do it is introducing them to like like say we're playing basketball. I like to make them feel included by adding them to a team, just having them meet new people as they play, like, you know, putting them into a team of 5. And with that, like as the day goes by, like they're gonna just learn their names, learn a little bit about them, and just from then next time they come, they'll have people to fall back on. Like they'll be like, oh, I already know him and him and him, right? So like I think that's like the best way to just make them feel included and just have them like, you know, try to, you know, be incorporated into a group, basically.
Thanks, Vincent. Great question, Ingrid. I'm wondering, Peter, do you have any thoughts about that question?
Like Vince was saying, just like inviting people on maybe your team if you already had one, and like maybe if a game's over, just come and invite more people on the court, and maybe just like socialize around with people that you maybe don't know. Ask them questions maybe about, like, since we're playing basketball, maybe you should ask them something that you don't know how to do, and you just start a conversation from there.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Manoa Ariella has a question. I did have a question as well for the roundtable. How do you find the energy or motivation to continue helping the community? I know that you should rely more on habit and discipline, but I feel that once you lose momentum, it's harder to keep up. So yeah, what are some things that the roundtable does to stay motivated? Anything specific, maybe a self-care practice, community care practice? What are some things that folks do? Thanks for the question as well.
Yeah, this is a really good one. For us, we often go on like group bike rides with the board. So we'll have like an outside meeting instead of doing an inside one or a virtual one. So we have that chance to kind of see each other face to face. And then, yeah, it is at the end of the day after work and like looking after kids and whatever else you might have on the go. Yeah, sometimes you might feel a drain for energy. So I think just being gracious with yourself and, you know, being transparent with the rest of the people that are relying on you or working with you, so they know how you're feeling and what you're up to. And if you're going to be down one week and not able to help out, just let them know so they can keep the work going while you're not able to, if that's the situation you can be in. Yeah, and then time blocking that time to get back into it when you feel like you're able to. So yeah.
That's a good one. Keep going. Somebody else jump in.
So really, it honestly does come down to like honest communication. Like it's tough. There are gonna be days that like you feel on top of the world, and some days that it's just like you feel really low. But it's almost just understanding that this is gonna be kind of, especially when things, I mean, for us, I'm talking about something that's like starting off, really trying to navigate things like building the foundations of something. But it obviously exists in all sectors. It doesn't really matter if something's like been built for decades or, you know, a legacy organization per se, but maybe different types of struggles. But yeah, the energy and motivation is like, I don't know. I always remind myself, it's like, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for others. So I'm going to do it for those who can't actually do it for themselves, that might not have the resources, the skills, the means. Like it takes a lot of work, like even administratively, like navigating how to talk to people, like, you know, like I feel like it would be tough if I was like a little bit more of on the introverted side than the extroverted side on the average day, you know? And so just like little things that I feel like I don't know how I got to this place in a way, but at the same time I do. And I tell myself that energy and that motivation comes from really reminding yourself like why on tough days, but then also trying to find time to take care of yourself. I feel like exercising and staying active is like overlooked sometimes, and like really that health portion, and like it's small things, man. It's like going for walks, just getting fresh air, things like that. You know, those things are really overlooked as kind of like, you know, I'll just do that tomorrow, but it's actually really helpful in the long run. So yeah, I mean, it is definitely like habit and discipline, but at the same time, it's like you're not going to always be productive. You know, you're not always going to get things done on the to-do list. I feel like I'm constantly behind. Like there's no way the to-do list is ever done. And that's okay. Like that's okay if, you know, you feel a little overwhelmed sometimes and stuff. And it's okay to say no and say, actually, we're going to slow down things and we're not going to hit the goal that we thought we're going to hit, because we're going to just like slowly build towards it on another day. So yeah, you just got to be really gracious to yourself, because there's a lot of unexpected things that do happen.
Thanks for sharing. Our friends from SOS Congo, anyone want to respond to that about how you keep yourselves motivated?
Yeah, I want to add to that. So I'd say like the way I keep myself motivated, so depending on the task, is really seeing the end goal or having a goal in mind. Let's say like for my program, having the goal of like we want to achieve being able to have our own spot where youth could just rely on and be able to come to every Friday. I think that's like the main thing that keeps us going for that type of thing, right? It's like just being able to like work towards that, and seeing progress too it's gratifying basically, and it makes you also want more. It makes you want to keep going. So it's like having something in mind and just basically sticking to it until you get there is one of the most important things. Like, and like even like for school, like keeping like, you know, so many times I wanted to quit just because of how hard it is, but knowing that you need to like, oh, you're already halfway, I'm about to finish, like let me just get through it and push through it to just reach the end goal and be able to work that job I want to work. It's like that's what makes you want to keep on, you know, working towards it and stuff. So like I think that's like the most important thing.
Thanks, Vincent. Yeah, goals really important too. Anyone else have anything? Oh, go ahead, Amanda. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, something that was coming up a lot in the start of the conversation. A lot of you were hitting on this idea of like tapping into the strengths that people have, but also like helping people uncover their strengths. And then Peter, you had mentioned specifically as a way to like help get to know new people and bring them in. You had mentioned like ask people for help for something that like you don't know how to do and that sort of thing, which I thought was really clever. So I'm curious if any of you have other insights or tricks that you use to help people uncover their own strengths, or to help yourself uncover strengths. Like how do you fuel that curiosity, and how do you tap into the strengths of people?
I think Bethel hits it. One of the points, it goes well with creating lines of communication with other people, as well as trying to stay motivated in the day-to-day activity of trying to be wholesome and good for your community, is recognizing that people like you are not unlike you, Bethel. I think you're a person who could talk to anybody. Most of us, on the other hand, find it difficult to strike up conversations with people. So it's one of those things that you push through, and the more times you do it, the more times you get better at it. Like I'm quite an introverted person, so it took me quite a while to get my head into that space. But the part that spills over into continuing on the motivation side, when you have a look at people around the table with you, if you're sharing, and this was the point that Bethel, I think, was making a little earlier, when you don't hold the cards close to your chest, when you recognize that you're all there with the same motivation, then look around the table and find people who are wanting to do what you think is important to your community and encouraging them and getting them into the stuff that you're doing. Quit holding those tasks close to your chest as if they're yours to own. They're not. They're, like you said about ideas, I totally agree. Ideas are their own entity. If somebody can take off with your idea and make it wonderful, fantastic. Unfortunately, our society gloms too much on the monetary value of ideas. Ideas need to grow and foster. And if you can't run with it, let someone else run with it. It doesn't mean to say that you haven't started the ball rolling somehow. You can take that to heart, but keeping the conversation, the lines of conversation open, and especially with people who are new, they're as intimidated as you are starting the conversation in reciprocating. So it's not an easy thing at all to do, to talk to people. At least we're not really good at it here in North America, but some people are. Some people have the gift.
Yeah, no, some people definitely do have a gift. It's also like it's just, you get used to it talking to people. You're totally right, Keith. It's a skill that we all learn, for all of us. Yeah, and I think the question originally was talking about strengths, like how do we find strengths in people? Is that correct? Did I hear that correctly? Yeah, okay. Oh yeah. Yeah, honestly, it is. I find that a lot of people suffer with like imposter syndrome, like they don't actually think they're good at something. And I think that also the idea of like, when you apply for a job and they're like, you need 10 years of experience. No, we love people with 0 negative years of experience. Like there's something about someone that is passionate and willing to learn versus someone that might have all the skills. And of course you need like both people, like, we obviously need people that are skilled and knowledgeable because we need guidance, but at the same time, there aren't enough opportunities to kind of like bring people up. And so I think that not fearing like, okay, this person wants to try this thing out, talk it through. And I mean, the worst thing that could happen is that it's doesn't end up as you expected to, but there's like ways you can kind of figure out how to navigate that for next time. And so, yeah, I think that everyone has strengths, and it is quite a special talent to be able to see strengths and actually like provide opportunities. So if you're someone that sees strengths, honestly, even simple encouragement of pushing people, of being like, hey, you could do this, you can do this, and things like that, even if you might not be able to provide the opportunity, is a huge step.
Mm. Any of other roundtable members want to answer Amanda's question about? Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah. We bring in lots of different types of volunteers, and some of them may not start as bike mechanics. They might start as someone who's working at the farmers market every week, and they may be chatting to someone who works at the bike workshop, and they may be interested in giving it a try. So some people don't truly know what their skills are until they get a chance to exercise them. So by gaining some confidence and empowering people to give things a try, we end up with some amazing bike mechanics, or people that just want to chat with others at the bike parking, and pairing people with just like a door in to start, and then allowing them to expand their interests and knowledge as they feel comfortable, and as long as their time commitments allowed to, has been a successful strategy for us, with lots of different opportunities out here.
And that's so awesome to hear. That really tracks, I think, with what you said earlier about that invitation, right? That yes, you're inviting the public to come and experience, but also the invitation that someone can go, hey, I have this skill or I have this strength in this area of the bike cruisers, and then maybe it's that they become a mechanic because of their relationship, and that's really cool to see that and see how you're seeing that's happening in within the community that you're creating. Anyone else want to speak to how they help support strengths? If not, I do have one last actually question. And I'm curious to know from everyone, if you're so willing, what does it mean to be involved in community in 2023? I see everyone kind of like, oh yeah, okay. It's a great question that Amanda's putting forward here. That I'm curious to know from folks, what does it mean to be involved in community, specifically in 2023?
Specifically in 2023 is kind of the question that like would throw everyone for the loop. So thanks. I mean, right now it's definitely like it's still this like we talk about it all the time, right? It's like, you know, trying to navigate people feeling more comfortable on the virtual landscape, still people itching to get outside. And I think there's a lot of like political nuances as well. Just things that it like feels like the world is fine, and then you turn around and it's actually a dumpster fire. And like this is probably how humans felt like every century, but I feel like every year it just gets exacerbated, just gets bigger for some reason. And so at the end of the day for 2023, I think that depending where you look, I feel like you can live ignorance is bliss world for the most part. You know, you could just try to stay tunnel vision, but that's hard. That will only last for so long. And so building community in 2023 is understanding that the idea and concept of community was what I feel like understanding for first and foremost. I feel like why we're struggling with it is because the conditions of where we live. Like, I don't feel like my parents think twice about community. Community was everywhere. You know, these things are embedded in societies that we like to call global South or third world countries or whatever, you know, like just a non-Western like kind of countries. And when I say like non-Western, I'm really just talking about Canada and the United States, I'll be honest, and maybe Australia. Because like I feel like I even look at like going to parts of Europe, especially like closer to the Mediterranean area, it's different. Like the way life is thought about is very different. And I think in 2023, what's important is actually looking at where we are now and why we're struggling and kind of working backwards. And so for a lot of time, communities, the idea of community, a community center, was not necessarily lots of different people of color and different races, right? There was obviously like segregated areas and things like that. And so like this idea of trying to like break out norms that were like very much like politically pushed on us, it's like, how do we understand community in 2023? Well, we need to understand that I think personally that when we say inclusive, what does that mean, right? We throw all these words. What does accessibility mean to us, right? Like, what do these things mean? Because I think that in 2023, a lot of these, I like to call them like buzzwords potentially, they get thrown around. Yes, of course, places are inclusive. You won't turn anyone away. Like, of course you won't. But how do you actively practice that? Like, what does it actually mean? You know? And so I think it's a tough time trying to like understand like, wow, there's been lots of people that have been pushed out to the fringes of society. And now we're trying to build back and bring everyone in and connect with everyone. And that's very nuanced. Like, how do you do that? And like, not one person or one organization or one group is going to solve the problem. But that's why I feel okay with like, if accessibility just means financial accessibility, that is okay. You know, if inclusivity means just, you know, inclusive for this one thing, that's okay. But understanding that and just, you know, is that okay with what we want to do, or do we want to build out? Is that our capacity? And so, yeah, I think that lots of people are going to put diversity on their homepage. Like, we embody diversity. And then you see pictures of the people on their website, and it's definitely not that, right? But I'm sure they're not opposed to it. And you see all these things. And so I think that really understanding for yourself and like who you are in this place that we call Canada, and how can you build just a small community, maybe for people that relate to you and yourself and your community? That in itself will have a rippling effect. And so, yeah, just being very honest with yourself about these like buzzwords that of course mean a lot and they're loaded, and like what that actually means, and just kind of like building small community is like better than building no community. So just build something. That was a very long-winded answer.
No, thank you so much, Bethel, for that answer. I think the notion of like, for some people, that idea of being involved in community is actually just like, no, that's just existing.
Yeah.
And I think like that, and so really what you helped kind of break down has been really important. So, and for anyone else want to answer that question, what does it mean to be involved in community in 2023?
I'd like to chime in on this one as well. So because like even with like when I started with Estos Congo was like mid like COVID, so it's like it's a very different like atmosphere to like get used to. But so once we hit like 2023 and you start doing like in person and you start seeing more faces and you start really building relationships, that's when you really know someone, because like over the screen is just so partial and so it's so limited in a way, right? So like I feel like being part of a community now is like it's really a way to like connect, like you actually know people and you actually get to understand them as like individuals. And especially like my program that I run, like the basketball, you wouldn't be really able to do it if it wasn't for in person, right? So like when everything was closed and shut down, it was just so hard to get anything done. It was just everything was online and most people were too scared to even like meet in person or anything like that. So it's like yeah, it's definitely a different environment. And it's like, yeah, it's just a way of adapting now. I almost got used to the COVID ways. So but yeah, I think it's better now though. It's a lot better. It's easier to like actually understand and really build those values between people and stuff.
Kim or Peter, what about you? And thanks, Vincent, for that answer.
So I'd say maybe right now, like 2023, like we're kind of still going into the year, but extended from 2022, I'd say that it's I don't know how to explain it. I'm not sure.
No,
I have to think more upon it.
No worries. Kim, if you do you have a response?
Yeah, I'll just like I think it's been a lot about reconnection for us in a different way. A lot of our programs really hinged on being in person, and yeah, similar to what some of the other people have said, it's just reconnecting ourselves with people that maybe participated with our programs in the past, or connecting with people that haven't yet. So yeah, I think that's it for 2023, is those creating those reconnection points or connection points with rebuilding relationships perhaps that have been on pause for a little while.
Thanks, Kim. And Peter, I'll just come back to you in case you had the last word before we close. All right. Any other last remaining comments that the roundtable wants to make? It's been so much really great conversation and a lot of really amazing qualities and principles that I heard in our conversations today, and what it means to build community. But I'm just wondering from anyone, any other comments?
I just really appreciate seeing new faces on the call and being able to just like chat and being able to kind of just like hear new ideas and other things people are doing. Yeah, that's it.
Cool. Thanks, Bethel.
Well, a huge thank you to our amazing panel or roundtable. Thanks, Bethel, Kim, Peter, and Vincent for being a part of this gathering tonight and sharing your many stories and wisdom with us. I wrote like pages upon pages of like notes and quotes of like amazing things you said. I was like, yes, that's so right, or like important reminders. So thank you for all of that sharing. I also want to give a shout out to Ike, who's not with us tonight, but who helped introduce us to Vincent and Peter. So huge thank you for that. Your wisdom that you offered with us tonight was really valuable. And I also want to thank Maddie and Jenna for their hard work on the community grants project and really getting some of those pieces together. And thank you to all of you for attending. Seeing some faces here who I haven't seen for a while, so it's really lovely to see you again, and also some familiar faces. So always lovely to get to spend time together, whether it's online or in person. Really grateful for this time. So thank you for that. I'm going to throw in a couple of links in the chat for you. One is a gathering feedback form. We'd really love to hear how your experience was tonight. We also have a number of ways you can get involved with CDLI if you're interested. You can check out our website to see what's coming up. And it's always helpful to be signed up for our newsletter if you want to know what's going on. So you can find out more that way. And the last thing I have here is the City of Calgary is doing an ABCD asset-based community development consultation, and kind of unintentionally, actually, a lot of great strengths-based asset-based community development stories tonight. But they've been instructed by City Council to explore using an asset-based community development approach. And as part of that exploration, they are asking community partners to complete the survey that we linked in the chat by March 31st. And they asked if we could share it at our meetup tonight as one of their ways of getting it out to community. So if you have a chance to complete that survey over the next couple of days, they would really appreciate it. Basically, they're trying to get a sense from people in Calgary and the surrounding area, what your experience is with asset-based community development, what your thoughts are. And if you're not familiar with that term, it's really about looking at like a strengths-based approach to building community. So finding out what people are good at and using that as a starting point, having it be citizens-led, focusing on what's possible. So they're trying to get some feedback from people who are involved in community to get a sense of what's already happening and what might be possible from there. So that is in the chat for you as well. And with that, something we like to do here at CDLI to bring to a close all of our gatherings is to open up a closing gratitude or takeaway circle. So we want to give everybody the chance to either unmute and share or throw in the chat something that you're grateful for or taking away from today's conversation. And once we've all had the opportunity to share, we can sign off and move on to the rest of our evenings. So we'll open up that circle now. Anybody feel free to share a gratitude or takeaway.
Just thankful for everyone that joined this call, because it wouldn't be a conversation without other people. And it's just neat seeing things going on both in person, but also virtually, and kind of that silver lining where, you know, there are lots of things that I definitely enjoy doing in person, but it's cool being able to just like tune in from wherever, it's just come down and kind of hang out, have a conversation, learn new things. But yeah, that's it for me. I'm actually gonna jet because I got a thing that I gotta go to. But yeah, thank you for inviting me, and I hope to see everyone sometime and something else soon. Yeah.
Bethel.
You're welcome.
My name is Marla and I'm new today, so just kind of getting exposed to the conversation. I really think this was really valuable. I am learning about community organizing and the job that I do, and I definitely find, I think some days are super overwhelming, and so a lot of the advice that was given today was just you know, things to be mindful of, and I liked what Bethel was saying about, you know, keep it small and be consistent. And so it's like little practical things that you can do and know that you're making a difference if you're not doing the big splashy things. So yeah, I work with organizations that serve seniors. So I'm super happy, Kim, to hear about those bikes that are getting seniors out in the community and getting some exercise and fresh air, and that's really really a cool project.
That was going to be my takeaway too, Marla. It's just sort of that the image of the 4-person bike and some seniors or some kids or whoever it is on that. I love that. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation. And it was really great to spend the last little bit of time with everyone here, and I learned a lot. So yeah, Tyson, always appreciate anything that you invite me to because it's always really interesting.
Thanks for coming. I know for me, it's really this when we talk about momentum and continuing to like do the work of community building. It's moments like this that really help me do that, and hearing from other people and hearing the stories, that really just kind of keeps me energized to keep doing the work. So thanks, everyone.
I just want to honor that we've had a couple of submissions through the chat, so I'm going to read out a few of those as well. So we have so grateful for the speakers and their space to watch and connect. Thanks for the great feedback and great session we had today. Hope everyone has a good rest of their evening. And I'm grateful to know that I don't have to be perfect. I just need to get the ball rolling, and that's enough. And also for everyone here who is helping our communities. I will add that I'm always so grateful for these moments of inspiration, the like important reminders. The small but consistent was definitely one that stood out for me as well. And yeah, just really appreciate people's willingness to be brave. I know he had to pop off, but just like, so kudos to Peter for raising his hand. And I know for Maddie as well, it was her first time really doing some sort of public speaking. So also just like really grateful for people willing to be courageous and to put themselves out there, because they like we've been talking about, everybody has so much to offer. And so I've received a lot of gifts today, and I'm grateful for that. With that, I guess, I think we've all had the opportunity to share. It's been such a lovely evening with you all. I hope you all have a great rest of your night, and I hope we see you again soon. Welcome, Marla. It's wonderful to have you be a part of our little community.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.